All right, guys, welcome back. We are here at Tire Testing Weekend doing a whole barrage of tire testing. And right now, we are taking a look at the Upgrade RC Rock Claw. Upgrade RC is a new brand from AMain. I think it's kind of a house brand, if you will. And they just released two new tires, the Rock Claws, and I don't remember the name of the other one, but it's very Hyrax, or very Rupture looking. But it's a 5-inch tall tire, so we're going to have to take a look at that one on a different rig at a different time. I have forgotten why I put this second line onto this obstacle here. And I keep trying to take the old way, which has been destroyed by rain and by the Boom Racing Hustlers. Upgrade RC Rock Claws, even though they are a new brand, they're a new, completely something we've never seen before, and they're a house brand of AMain, which, that's not a bad thing. But typically, when you have a company that has like kind of their brand, it's usually more affordable. These are $33 a pair, $66 for a set of Rock Claws with open cell foams. Today, inside the Rock Claws, I am running the... Alright. Today, inside the Rock Claws, I'm running the Upgrade RC dual stage foam that was made. In the description, it specifically says made for the Rock Claw to improve the performance of the Rock Claw. So, all it really is a Crawler Innovation style foam. I don't know if you can really tell on the edge of the camera there, on the right edge, but through the magic of the internet, we just paused and did a little bit of obstacle work here. And despite the obstacle work, I'm trying to do the exact same stupid thing I was doing before. All right, I need to reset the truck. Something that you get to see here occasionally is me kind of messing with the obstacles and trying to find ways to build them to make them a little less... I don't want to make them easy, but I also, there's, when you're crawling in a natural environment like this, if you don't do that, you're going to break a lot of stuff, getting your axle twisted up or your tire twisted up. So I'll do that on occasion. I'm not trying to cheat and make the obstacle easier for a specific tire. I'm trying to make the obstacle easier for myself to drive so that I can be more consistent. Back to what I was saying, $66 for a set of these. That puts these more expensive than pretty much anything from J Concepts, anything from even Proline. I mean, we're getting close to Pitbull range, which Pitbull are grossly overpriced. So, then you have the foams, and like I said, I'm running the Upgrade RC foams that are basically kind of a Crawler Innovation style. They're a little bit cheaper than Crawler Innovations. I think Crawler Innovations are usually $24 for a pair. These are $22 a pair, I think. But the Crawlers come with a removable outer foam, like a tuning ring, and these don't. So, take that for what you will. These also would be like a Crawler Innovation wide. Crawler Innovations has a wide and a standard just kind of thickness of their foam, depending on the size beadlock you're running. So these would be like the wides, just for the sake of saying it. On the side hill, we're seeing quite a bit of side slipping from the Rock Claw. That foam holding up decently, although collapsing a little more than I would like to see. I would like that inner tuning ring, or the inner closed cell foam on these to be about a 1/4 inch taller than it is, maybe an 1/8 inch taller than it is. But they're doing all right. They're not allowing it to slip too much. So now we get to the point where we try to turn up and pivot. And what I want is for that rear tire to slide just a little bit, but not so fast that it pulls the front end up and over. But now, instead of the rear sliding out, the front is trying to slide. So we need to apply a little less angle. Get that front settled. There we go. That's actually a pretty good side hill performance. I don't, they slide sideways a little bit more than I would like, but it's not bad. The Rock Claws are a very, very thin carcass tire. You can see that rear tire wrapping. That is usually indicative of a tire that has a very thin carcass. And usually how that translates into performance and just real world observations is it makes it better at rock crawling, but it also makes it less durable, meaning it'll make it less desirable to use as a trail tire. And in my opinion, that means I definitely wouldn't recommend running just an open cell single stage foam that, you know, that comes in pretty much all tires. Those foams are fine for trailing. They're fine for kind of crawling around and stuff. They give you a good forward drive. They're not great for side hilling, and they're not great for durability. So when you have thin carcass tires, you want a foam that is going to kind of be rigid on the sidewall, because that sidewall is where you're most likely to get a rip. And if you have something too soft there, like a open cell foam that has a lot of give to it, a lot of times it will just allow that carcass just to tear, because it'll allow like a stick or a rock or something to really dig into it. Whereas your stiffer foam won't prevent that from happening, but it'll definitely, excuse me, definitely reduce the likelihood of it. Now we might be gonna deal with a rollout here coming off the obstacle. That rear tire is starting to slide. We're getting kind of down into a divot right under that tire. So what we need to try to do, and why I just rebuilt the entrance and exit on this obstacle, is to give me a few more options here. Some tires mixed with a foam. Let's settle that front driver's side if we can. Some tires handle that better than others, but I don't usually complain too much about a tire suffering from a divot like that. That's a pretty dramatic difference in the surface of the rock. Yeah, Upgrade's doing good there. Rock Claws, rather. Rock Claw is hard to say because Losi used to have a tire called Rock Claw. Not hard to say, it's just hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that these are called Rock Claw. Yeah, that's good. Had to take that slowly, but they handled it well. They didn't slide excessively. That was a really good side hill performance. Okay, guys. I'm going to apologize. I'm going to be breathing heavy here for a few minutes. I just spent about 10 minutes trying to move rocks around. I'm trying to make something out of this wet, dry obstacle that's completely underwater, but I can't get anything that's desirable today, and I need to think it through. So we're going to bypass it for the next couple days. We're just not going to be testing wet tire performance. I can't get something that doesn't like almost completely submerge the truck, which I don't want to do. I don't really want to submerge the tires that much because I don't really want to pull every set of foams out immediately. So I think rather than doing wet tire performance, we're just going to go up over here. Let me find a better place to stand. And we'll just come up here. There's nothing difficult here. Every tire should be able to do this. I decided this now because the only other set of tires I've run were the Reefs Crux, and I think I'm going to re-review those at some point with a different insert in them. But I just can't get the obstacle I want there. The obstacle I usually use is 3 or 4 feet underwater right now, and even trying to do what I was kind of thinking I would do, I've almost fallen 3 or 4 times down there. I'm out here completely by myself. There's nobody else out in this campground, at least not right now. And I don't even have cell phone signal, so I like making these videos. I appreciate you guys watching them and subscribing, but I'm not going to risk my life to drive through a little bit of water. So, next up, here we're trying to get the rear to hook on the edge of this rock and help just push us up and over. showing a little promise. See, after driving through the water I've already driven through, there's lots of squeaks in the drivetrain. And I don't have my dry lube out, so I'll have to use gun oil to fix that. Not able to do it so far. They show a little bit of promise and then they fall off. Yeah, if we go too much that way, we can probably do it. That's kind of the easy path. But then we fall off the other side of the rock, so you kind of take it at an angle. A little bit more like this. Well, up and back, up and back. We start making progress and then it completely loses traction and slides back. Oop. Upset the suspension there. Ooh. Still getting used to that 2300 Fusion Pro versus the 1200 that used to be in it. Ooh, big old donkey kick there. Oh. Ooh, not pretty. We got up on the rock and then it just slid off. Upgrade's not doing so hot right here, especially considering that most tires that do this obstacle do it when they're wet. There we go. Sometimes you just got to get that perfect line for the tire. Upgrade's being picky about the line to get up on this obstacle for sure. I think I'm going to have to take a pause after this review and dry out my sock. One of the times that I about fell while messing with that water obstacle, I stepped completely ankle deep into the water and my sock's all wet. Well, change socks, I guess. I don't need to wait for it to dry. So far, the upgrades are doing pretty well. They've struggled with one obstacle, and to be fair, we haven't got to see the wet performance of them. Not that I think wet performance, that's about the least important thing. That's why I'm willing to skip figuring anything out on that obstacle, because I think wet performance is about the least important thing for actual rock crawling. You know, trail guys that you guys like to run submerged and like to run on water, RTR tires are good enough for most of you. Those of us doing rock crawling like this usually like to avoid water anyhow. So I don't put a hyper amount of importance on wet performance. But upgrade's doing pretty well overall. I should quit calling them upgrades. Rock Claws doing pretty well overall. But man, that price tag, I'm still trying to get over the sticker shock of that price tag. And I talked about this in the review of the Crux, where I talked about how I don't typically like to spend a lot of time focusing on the cost of a tire, and I'm comparing a tire just kind of against itself. How does it perform? But sometimes there's certain prices with a tire that I think you can't ignore the cost, because upgrades are not a scale tire. They're not a ugly tire, but they're not like an overly attractive tire. They're not a name brand tire. They're not a proven tire, and they're more expensive than like the majority of the competition. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, so I'll mention it now, even though it will be in the title of the video. These are the Red Compound, which is their softer and stickier compound. They have two compounds available, as a lot of manufacturers do. Red, and I don't remember what the other one is, but this is the Red. But I am unsure if their other compound is this thin. I would hope not. I would hope the whole point in having two compounds is have one that's more performance oriented, one that's more longevity oriented. And if the other ones, even if the compound is not as sticky, if they're this thin, I could never recommend this tire for trailing. Inevitably, we'll test that other compound at some point. But for now, we're looking at the reds. And I gotta say, the reds are doing good. They're impressing me. I'm not like blown away from a perspective of, man, this is the best tire I've seen in a long time, and this is making me question everything I thought about Tusks and these other tires that I think are really good. But so far, this is up there in performance. And since you pay for it, that's a good thing. It would be really sad to have these tires be $66 a set and perform like Boom Racing Hustlers. Took a little bit of a wrong line getting up here. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's put that compound to the test and that cost to the test. Are they really worth what you pay? See the lizard on top of this rock over here? We're trying to get over to the right side of this rock so we can hook the ledge and use the side lug to pull us up. Wow, actually, okay, that's good. I am going up this obstacle without having to use a side lug until the very end, and even then, barely. That, folks, now I've gotten hooked. That end is driver error. There we go. Okay. $33 a pair, kind of justifying themselves right there. Lots of lizards coming out this morning. Oh, no. All right. That 100% was driver error. Got a little too excited by nature and watching the lizards. I wasn't watching where I was driving. All right. This guy here, always have trouble finding a good flat place to put the camera here. I can't usually get it level, so forgive me if on camera sometimes it makes it look like I'm cheating and trying to make the obstacles seem steeper than they actually are. My intention is not to do that on purpose, but I've got my camera as a cell phone that is just sitting on a tripod. It's a very cheap tripod, and I am on very uneven ground, and so I can only set it as level as I can set it. So here we try to hug the side on the passenger side of the truck, use the sidewall to kind of pull us along, because if we fall off on the driver's side, you're not getting back up without a class 3 size tire. It's just too much of a drop. And then where the front of the truck is driving over now, the rear often gets hung on the rear pumpkin. Right there is the hang up, and Upgrade's pulling it over nice and easily. Only the tallest tires don't really get hung up there, but tires with good forward drive, the fronts can pull the rear over really easily, which is the point of that hang up being there. Coming up to the steeper incline, I have high hopes for the rock claws here. I took a little bit of the wrong line getting on. The rear is now caught under, oh, I'm about to rip that front tire off. Hang on. Just about ripped the bead right off that front tire, which goes back to what I was saying with thin carcass tires you got to watch out for. Yeah, Upgrade's not having any issues here. Don't have to apply a lot of wheel speed. Nice and easy getting up and off. I gotta say, I mean, the Rock Claws are a really good tire. They're kind of justifying their price for the most part. I still don't know if I'd say they're worth $33 a pair, but they're not worth some money, an amount of money. And I'm almost positive, so I pre-ordered these tires because I just stumbled across them one day, and I'm almost positive when I pre-ordered them, they were $29.99 a pair, which Still, to me, when you just think about it initially, and you think about these aren't a Proline, which, I mean, I'm not the hugest fan of Proline tires, but I'm just saying they're an established company with a big user base. They're not a J Concepts. They're an A-Main tire. Even $29.99, my initial impression would be, man, that's a little rich, don't you think? But then the way they're performing, I would be very happy with that. I'm still at the $33. Even with the way they perform, I'm thinking of a couple tires like J Concepts Tusks that are $25 a pair, almost $10 cheaper a pair. So almost $20 cheaper for a set. $16 cheaper for a set. Are these $16 better than Tusks? Are these better than Tusks? Up the loose gravel hill climb. Loose gravel, not quite as loose right now. We've got some rain and some of that gravel is packed down in there. So we're able to get up with minimal throttle. Now, sometimes that's indicative of a good tire, but I think that rain is definitely helping us. So far, haven't had to use much of the wheel speed that's available to me now with the Fusion Pro versus the older 1200 kV Fusion SE I was using. But I suppose it's nice to know it's there. I just want to do a little bit more playing around with the trigger adjustment on my transmitter to dial in a little bit more lag in the throttle to give myself some more dead zone. Because when I'm driving one-handed, I flip the throttle sometimes, and that's scary when you're on a rock. So ultimately, I think the Rock Claws are a really good tire. They did really well on everything. I didn't test them wet. I have a feeling they would do very well wet. They did good on the side hill. They did good on steep climbs. They did good on uneven surfaces, and they did good on surface transition and positionability. So I really don't have complaints about the Rock Claws other than I think they're overpriced. But then again, they do perform really well. If I had to change anything, it wouldn't actually be with the tire. It would be with the Upgrade RC foams. I would make that closed cell inner just a little bit bigger and give me a little less bag than that. I don't need that much bag. I don't like that much bag, especially on a tire with this thin of carcass. You're going to rip a sidewall if you're not careful. Other than that, even with the price, I mean, you know, if you could afford $30 for, or let's say $60 for a set of tires, you can afford $66 for a set of tires. So it's not as much an affordability thing. It's kind of a value thing. But quite honestly, I think the value is there. I wouldn't say they're the most valuable. I definitely wouldn't say they're the best tire you can get, but they are really good, and I'm very shocked just because it's not that I thought, you know, A-Main's crap or anything, but like, who would have thought that A-Main would have a, quote, house brand that would do this good? So until next time, everybody, have a good day.